Hey, what's up, guys? This is the Cryptic Heartland Podcast, episode number 134. We are live tonight with a very special guest, Mr. Johnny Hauser of the Villisca Axe Murder House. And then along with the studio, I got Jason. I think you're going to have to see him. I'll get him on the screen here in just a second. Sorry. Jason.
Look down here.
Down this way.
I didn't have him over far enough. Sorry, Jason. There's Jason. Let me get Dan over. Jason on the left. Big guy in the middle is Mr. Jake. Guy on the right is Dan the Man. And of course, down below is Renee. And I'm Leo Fernandez, Cryptic Heartland Podcast. And then, of course, the man of the hour, Mr. Johnny Hauser. How we doing, Johnny?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing fantastic, man. Can't complain.
Fantastic.
That might be a little bit of a stretch, but
It's weird. Anytime you get somebody asks how you're doing, you're like, "Oh, I'm doing great." They kind of look at you like, like they're offended that you're doing great.
Right. How could you possibly be doing great when my world sucks right now?
I'm doing great until I noticed that doll looking at me.
What, does a dog at you?
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Hey, I like dolls, man. Not creepily, but like haunted dolls especially. Like, that looks awesome, man.
Nope.
Oh, man. Miss a little bit of hair.
I haven't named her yet. I need to come up with something.
So I gotta ask, are you actually, where you at right now? Are you at the actual Villisca Murder House, or are you at your own house?
I'm at my own house, which is probably just as bad. So the room I'm in right now was Mary Peckham's bedroom, the lady that found bodies.
Right.
So
Wow.
if I look out my window, my view right here is the Axe Murder House.
Gotcha.
And the Moore kids used to play over here, so I mean, they're just kind of one and the same.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. Yeah, you live real close, like literally right next door, but I didn't know that's where you were broadcasting live tonight from, which is good. I mean, hey, you're just a stone's throw away from the building, actually, from the actual Villisca Murder House, so that's pretty wild stuff, man.
Yeah, and probably for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I woke up in the middle of the night to stomping up here, to where it woke me up out of the sleep, and I thought somebody had broken the house. I go up here, nothing. So on this door that locks this room, I now have a padlock to where nothing's getting out.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
I was just getting ready to ask that too, if you had anything happen at your house.
Padlock.
I didn't realize that you lived at Mary Peckham's house.
Yeah, and when we first moved in, my daughter started talking about Hattie this, Hattie that, Hattie, and finally she wouldn't sleep in her room because Hattie scares her. I'm like, who is Hattie? She goes, that's the woman that lives upstairs. I'm like, you're a creepy little kid. So when Darwin passed away, who bought the Axe Murder House, I was going over the deeds. Mary Peckham died 6 months after the murders from a nervous breakdown. Wow. And the house went to her adult daughter, Hattie Peckham. So this was the Hattie she was talking about. Years go by. Okay. I'm giving my son a bath, and he was 2. He goes, bye, Dad. Bye, Grace. And he looks up, bye, Hattie.
Wow.
I'm like, what? He goes, bye, Hattie. It's 2 years old. He doesn't know that story.
Right.
And then last summer, right before everything got shut down, excuse me, we were doing day tours, and some lady came who claimed that she lived in my house in the 80s. I'm like, okay. Well, she shows me a picture of her as a baby in the living room. I'm like, okay, yeah, you did live here. She's quiet, and she goes, weird stuff happened there, but I felt like it was a nice ghost, like an old lady, and I had a name for it. It started with an H. I go, Hattie? I was like, yep. I mean, verified 3 times within a span of 10 plus years,
Wow.
So, but then she goes, yeah, I'd sleep in one room, and Hattie would come in and give me a back rub. Like, I am sleeping in that room.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm fixing to get a ghost back rub out of this.
That's awesome.
I mean, a back rub's okay, but if it gets a little bit too handsy, then we might have problems,
Oh,
I'm not going to turn it down. I'm just saying.
I was up here if you had lemon fingers or anything.
You're like, Hattie, I'm giving you about 20 minutes to quit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You'll be fine.
Pretty soon you're going to see me on I Married a Ghost.
Hey, now there you go.
I mean, it's really probably
There's
out
a
there
concept
yet.
there.
I think it is, yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, we all know the truth now. Johnny was just a little too close to the action. He actually heard when the ghost met. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So when did Darwin actually pass away? Darwin was a friend of yours. I know he bought the house some odd years ago. And did you move in after the fact, or next door to him after that he bought the house, or you did?
So he had the axe murder house, and he passed away in 2011. But he had the axe murder house, bought it in '94. When I moved to town and started working for him, this house came open immediately. I'm like, Darwin, you better snatch that up before somebody's like revving their car all night long, ruining investigations here. And it's historically tied. So he bought it, and he said he's going to do it like a bed and breakfast. And then he goes, I'm so glad you're going to do all the cooking and cleaning. What? Ramen noodles, baby. And then he goes, well, I just want you to move in, actually. Because they live like half hour away out of Villisca. They don't live in Villisca at all. So he was always worried somebody was messing with the house.
Yeah.
Because back in those days, it wasn't booked constantly. There wasn't always overnights, you know.
Mm-hmm.
When I came, we'd do maybe one overnight or two overnights a month, if that. Day tours were non-existent. And this is before any of the TV shows started coming.
Right.
And I think this was actually before Taps, I believe, was on Sci-Fi.
Oh, wow.
'Cause I was working at the house, and then that came on. I'm like, holy crap, there's a show about ghost hunting. This is amazing. And then you get the big four, you know, Paranormal State, Ghost Adventures, you know, Ghost Lab, Taps.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if you watch Paranormal State, you don't watch Ghost Adventures. If you watch Taps,
Oh
you
my
don't
God.
watch. It's like Bloods and Crips.
It is.
You're one or the other. And I was at a convention, and Aaron Goodwin walks out, and we're kind of chit-chatting. Well, then Chip Coffey walks out, and there's a bunch of people out. It's like after the convention's over, everybody's kind of at the bar, and there's a big, oh. People were nervous,
Oh my
and they
God.
walked up to each other, eyeing each other, and then gave each other a big hug and kiss on the cheek, and everybody erupted. And like, that was a moment back then. Like, nobody could believe it. Like, shows uniting, people liking each other.
Exactly. And the difficult part about all that was, you know, everybody wears black, so I mean, what color are you supposed to be? What side? How do we draw lines in the ground, you know?
At one time, I wanted to start the ghost hunting Hawaiian shirt, but it never caught on.
Sweet.
Oh my gosh. I don't understand why. It's like, dude, you messed with the lights with all these different colors.
We can start that, definitely. I'll do it. I'll
Oh
order
my
it.
god. You can wear it.
What would ghosts think if here's all these black weirdos
Uh-huh.
walking around? If you have a Hawaiian shirt on, that means, hey, I'm ready to have some fun.
That's right. Everybody
Why
loves
not?
it.
Why not?
Oh,
Oh my god. Yeah.
You never know though. They might come out and be like, hey, since they're pretty cool, so maybe just more action going.
yeah, exactly.
Think
If
they
I
had,
was a ghost and I seen someone in a Hawaiian shirt, I'd be like, I would love that dude. All night.
Well, and it's so difficult. Like, that's what I always do, especially in an investigation, no matter where we go. Unless we've been there a million times, then I change the verbiage a little bit. But I make an announcement to everything. I'm just like, hey, you know, I know we look a little different than you. I'm not here to hurt you. You know, I give them a little warning that. Because, I mean, look at you, you have a big mustache and beard. Look at me, I have a big goatee and beard. I mean, half the time these guys, except for Jason, they each have big beards going on too. You know?
I'm down here. Look at me.
He's the little guy in the corner. Renee,
Hey, I don't have a
I was gonna say, Renee, you can grow a beard.
Yeah, next time.
That's like I was doing years ago, man, 15 years ago. I was rolling a ball in the axe house, trying to get a kid to roll a ball back to me because that's what they were saying was happening. And I'm like, nothing's happening for 4 hours, and I'm, this is stupid. And I'm like, covered in tattoos, the gigantic beard. Like, if you were a little kid, would you roll a ball to me? Roll me a ball, little kid.
I got some candy.
No chance. Yeah, exactly. Stranger danger.
Right.
No chance. I wouldn't.
Good call. Good
Yeah,
call.
that's why I do that announcement. I'm just like, hey, I'm not going to harm you. I know I look scary. I apologize in
Just
advance.
bring candy. It's
Yeah.
all right.
Kids, you want some candy?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and like I said, which brings me up to a point. I know we watched like a lot of the shows that you ran, except for like Sinister. I mean, your laundry list of things you've been in is, it's huge. We watched like the Johnny versus the I always butcher this, the Villisca Axe Murder House series, and I noticed when you first went in, you had a different demeanor kind of a thing. You had where, you were a little on edge most of the time, even during the daylight. I thought that was fascinating. I mean, let's face it, ghosts don't just appear in the night, they appear during the day also too. And I think that's even what your episode was alluding to, is like, what happens in the darkness happens in the light.
Yeah, they're still there.
Appropriately titled, you had some interaction going on also too. But about the third, I think the third or fourth episode, I noticed your patience and your demeanor changed a little bit. I didn't know if it was just you getting tired of going into the house, asking questions, not getting the initial responses, on contact with what you thought was happening. Even though when you go back and watch the video, the audio, there's stuff going on, and we have that same thing in our cases. But were you frustrated by the lack of interaction, or was it the house kind of taking its toll on you, or maybe both?
It's the house.
That's what I thought.
100% the house.
Yep.
And that's why I don't like investigating there. And I swore it off, and then, Nick was called up and he wanted me to do, it's like, oh, you got to do the Axe House, man. You're the Axe House guy. I'm like,
Right.
okay. So I started doing it, and it's just like, stuff started happening here, and the weird dreams, and just bad. And it kept building and building and building. If you notice the last few episodes, I'm in the barn or the basement. I'm not in the house. Because I finally went in. I'm like, I got Hello Ghosts. I have 4 episodes left. I'm out of it. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm hearing what you're saying. I'm smelling what you're, I will just do the barn and then the basement, and then I'm done. And it's the house. I couldn't imagine living there for a year. You'd go crazy.
That's kind of what I was anticipating, just being a person, somebody who's investigated all these years also too, not the actual house, but just in general. Some of the places we go, you start to adopt the persona there, you start feeling a little too close to the action, like we said, and it's just, it wears on you, man. Next thing you know, you're a little more aggressive than you usually are accustomed to, and we've seen it on a couple cases, some of these guys come back, and first we chalk it up to being tired, after being, we travel a lot, obviously, and we drive back either overnight or the next morning early, and it's just like, man, am I tired, or is it where I was, affecting me? And it's a little bit of both, I think.
Paranormal hangover.
Exactly. Yes, that's it. That is the thing. Yep. It can last for days after. Even I've heard people have weeks. This stuff, and it's a real thing, people. So those who don't know about it, it's very real.
So how much of it has affected you over the time that you've been doing this?
I feel relatively sane. I feel like you have to have faith in whatever you choose to have faith in, or some sort of protection. You have to have a level mind, a strong mind, like, especially with that. You go back to Reverend Kelly, the minister who confessed, who was acquitted of all charges, but he's talking about a shadow giving him an axe and telling him to slay utterly and kill. He was schizophrenic.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a guy that lived in there in the 60s who stabbed himself in the hand, was just in a daze, sharpening his knife, and he goes, boom. Then you got the guy in 2014 that shoved a knife through his chest, Yeah. It's like, I wonder if whatever's in there preys on people that aren't super mentally tough. You know what I mean? And I'm not sure how to phrase that.
Yeah, no.
That's not prepared, or I don't know. I went in there, and I'm like, yo, like, I got to work here, so leave me alone. I'll leave you alone. We got to have some bound. I go, screw with the overnights as much as you want. Free day. Then I'm like, okay, you guys need me, because if I'm not here doing this, you have nobody to mess with day after day. so you need me here. Like I'm bargaining, you know.
Right.
And my house is full of all kinds of religious artifacts and crosses and you know, anything I can possibly have to try and keep it under wraps a little bit.
Understandable. Yep. No, I mean, I can, like I said, I understand completely. Go ahead, sorry, you were going to say something?
But here I am with a giant doll hanging out with me that was sitting on my lap earlier, so who knows?
That's right.
I'm just waiting for it to just turn its head and look at
Yeah, blink.
I hope so, man. That'd be great.
Well,
Nope.
I have a plan for this doll.
Okay.
So if inanimate objects can hold energy, like Annabelle or any other haunted doll, can I create the most haunted doll on the planet by letting it just marinate in as many locations as I can?
Huh.
Like for 6 months at this place, 6 months at this place, 6 months and just like
Wow.
That's an interesting
Creative.
theory,
Wow.
for sure.
I mean, to me, I think it's quite possible, but man.
Well,
What do you do when the moment it happens and it starts talking to you?
Oh, that's what you
then
learned.
I sell it to Baggins for
Absolutely.
Man, you got it all figured out. I like it.
Let us know how
Yeah.
it works out. 'Cause,
You know he's gonna buy it
original,
too. Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Retire off of this.
And then make sure you always start with "Don't touch the doll," you know, 'cause you know he's
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
touch it.
Yeah.
Right. Hint, hint, wink, wink.
Suspenseful music.
God. So when they were, sorry.
Do you remember on YouTube, or it was a news thing a long time ago, a woman had a demonic toaster
I
that
kind
was
of
burning
do.
like 666
Yes.
in her breath.
Yes, I do actually. Oh my.
I want to find that toaster. I
Yeah,
wanna-
what became of that thing?
Better go to the Zach's Museum. Everybody has one. I was gonna say.
Vegas has it.
Yeah. And my question, how long have you been calling yourself Bagans versus Baggins? Was it because the Lord of the Rings came out and got so popular? It's like, I don't
Could
be
be.
associated with the, you know, something so dwarf-like, whatever, not dwarf, whatever. I guess they were hobbits, excuse me. But,
I guess it has changed.
oh yeah, over the years.
years.
Yeah, I noticed that from the first episodes, even the documentary that came out. Which the original documentary was cool as hell. I mean, I loved it. And then he kind of, once he got too full of himself, his ego grew, and next thing you know, it became something else. But hey, I'm not here to dog on him. I mean, at least he's doing it, man. I mean, I'm jealous of that aspect. Plus, he has a kick-ass museum with all his artifacts. I mean, you can't fault the guy.
You know, like when all the shows were in their prime, in my mind, I'm like, I wonder which one's going to be still here.
Right.
And I never would have guessed Ghost Adventures, and they're the ones that still at it.
Kicking.
Like season 5,000.
The underworld.
Yeah, it's like cool, man. I mean,
Yeah.
great. That's
They're like Star Wars episodes 1, 2 through 20.
and I recently went back and started watching from like season 1, episode 1 again. It's like, oh man, these were so good.
Yes, they were.
Oh yeah, the first episodes were the best.
They're so cool for what they were. Yeah. And you know, I love the original Ghost Hunters episode.
Yeah.
Back when they first started doing it, you could tell they were genuinely, you know, afraid to do what they were doing. It's not like, okay, now we've been here, I'm a little jaded, I need to get ratings up. It's more about, you know, whatever. It's, I mean, everybody changes over time.
Yeah, it was real, and it was new, and it was exciting, and good times.
How many shows have been there to Villisca?
40 some.
Wow.
So-
we've
Wow.
So-
turned down twice as many. There's a
Oh,
lot
sure.
of really. Oh, we're the redneck ghost hunters. Pick on the killer in the attic. Goodbye.
Yeah, I get it. Everybody has to have a, you
So
know,
I'm sure
dish.
everybody takes their own take on the story.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know, like bottom line, 6 little kids were murdered.
Right.
Like,
Right.
and that's like what's first in my mind. And then if
Yeah.
they seem like they're going to be, well, we know the shows, we know how they are. Like if it was extreme, I'm going to cut myself paranormal. No, you're not.
Oh my God.
We just did another Travel Channel episode a few weeks ago, which I can't talk about,
Sure.
but be on the lookout for that.
Nice.
And it's been nice. Like I've filmed for 2 different networks since, well, within the month. So it's like nice to be back and doing it again.
Exactly.
That's That's a lot of fun. But,
Yeah.
Wow.
we've done, and there's been a lot of, just the not ghost hunting shows, just the telling ghost stories or true crime or stuff like that.
So yeah, my wife even pointed out to me, because I told her who you were and what you did, where you were from. She's like, wait a minute, what's that story? And I started telling her about it. She's like, oh my god, I just saw this on Murders at the Mystery, or wait a minute, Murders, what's it called? Mysteries at the Museum. Sorry, I said that wrong.
Yeah.
They said they did a whole piece on that, Villisca Murder House. Were you on that episode too, Johnny? I'm just kidding, right? But
I think that they just kind of did that with some stock
reenactments.
footage
Yeah.
and reenactments and
Yeah.
stuff. That was just.
But yeah, she knew the story behind it. I'm like, yeah, that's the one this is where Johnny came from. That's how we, he's the real deal.
And I was, like, when I came to the house, I was very much alien government conspiracy guy. But I thought ghosts were dumb. It's just like, if you're going to be weird, you got to be full weird. You can't be selective weird. Like,
Right.
if you believe in ghosts and aliens, you also kind of got to believe in Bigfoot. And
See, that's sort of where I'm going with the Bigfoot thing. Like, I guess I kind of have to go along with
Bigfoot does
I'd love to hear your take on aliens and all that too.
Oh, absolutely. And kind of as we're talking about Bigfoot, like the idea of an unknown mammal in North America is so far out of belief. Come on, we're still finding new species of animals today.
Yeah.
Like there's thousands a year. They're like, I didn't know that was still here, or what is this? We don't know. We don't even know why cats meow. We know how they meow, but scientists can't tell us why they meow.
Exactly.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
So the fact that we think we know everything about everything on this planet is so cocky and stupid.
Yep.
Like
Yes.
an
Absolutely.
elephant in the Congo takes about 2 weeks to fully disappear after they die. They start to decompose. Bugs start eating the bones. Scavengers carry them off. So if you find any bone, going to be a little chunk of something. You're not going to pick this up and go, oh, that's a piece of a leg bone from an elephant. You're not going to know. So the fact of there's been no Bigfoot bodies found, just that doesn't add up. Because a lot of animal bodies aren't found. And an animal, when they're hurt, are usually going to burrow themselves in away from predators, hide themselves, But I also know people who believe Bigfoot is a time-traveling alien that levitates.
that's actually the only way I believe in them.
But I honestly think it's just a unknown mammal in North America, I get confused with some of the shows because I like to bow hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go out in the woods and you got scent blocker on, you are invisible to the animals. It still takes the forest about an hour before it comes back to life. Like when you walk out there, it's dead quiet. After you've sat there for so long that they forget you're there, everything comes alive. The birds and the animals and, squirrels running around. So these shows where they're got a megaphone blasting a gorilla screaming, every animal in those woods are gone. They're
Right.
like, what the hell is that? We're out of here.
True. Yep.
Yeah, and if Sasquatch is watching that or listening to that, they're just going to sit by and just continue watching and not think of their presence. My belief.
I was on a Bigfoot thread. And they were talking about leaving peanut butter outside, and they're like, oh my gosh, the peanut butter's gone. Bigfoot came and ate it. You left peanut butter in the woods. Anything came by and ate that.
I was gonna say, your dog that you had with you is gonna eat it, whatever,
Yeah. But
Yeah.
as long as people are enjoying themselves doing it, whatever.
Have
Maybe
you
it
ever
was Bigfoot.
have you ever seen one or thought maybe you saw something?
No. What kind of really got me into like cryptozoology was the old Unsolved Mysteries episode.
Oh, God, yeah.
Where somebody recorded a Sasquatch screaming on a highway in the middle of the night, and they played it, and me as a little kid, just like, oh my god.
I know.
So then I went, and then Harry and the Hendersons came.
It is real.
And you know the guy in the green army coat that was hunting Bigfoot,
Yep.
wanted, and I wanted to be him when I grew up. That's like, I remember looking in the woods by our house, and then I made Bigfoot feet out of plywood. Perfect. And I'm way out in the middle of the woods, like leaving fake Bigfoot tracks for somebody to like, nobody's going to come out here and see this. They don't even look like, they're like blocks.
Wow.
And I've never seen a ghost. I've never seen a ghost.
Really?
Nope.
That's interesting.
But I have seen probably 2 UFOs, I truly believe.
Really?
Yeah.
Care to share?
Nah.
No.
Well, okay, that's your evening. Thanks, Johnny.
That's a wrap.
I'll go away.
We were on our way as a little kid, and we were on our way to church, and the whole family is in the Cutlass Supreme, I think it was.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in the back seat, and I'm looking at the sky, and I see what looks like a ball bearing in the sky. Like it was shining, but it's just stationary. And I watched this thing for half an hour slowly go up like this, boom, back down. Up, boom, back down. It just was there. And then it just shot up, gone within seconds. I mean, what else could do that? And I remember one of my earliest memories as a little kid, probably I was under 10 years old. I saw something in the sky, and so I got my dad, and my dad saw it, and he got my uncles. We were at my aunt and uncle's house. The whole family piles in a van, and we're excuse me, following this thing. Followed it clear out to a farm field, and there's a cop sitting in the farm field, which is odd.
Right.
And Dad's like, "Are you seeing this thing?" He's like, "Oh, it's a weather balloon." We went home, and like in my mind, like, why was the cop in the middle of the field staring at this thing? And with a weather balloon, give me a break. Weather balloon at night.
So it was weather
Or
balloon.
was it a cop?
Melissa
Yeah,
shot that
yeah,
fast.
wow.
Mind blown.
Mind
Yep.
blown. I've wanted to go back and try and find papers in this town about when it happened to see if anybody else reported it or who knows.
Right.
But I figure, like, if in the ever-expanding, infinite cosmos that goes on forever, the fact that we're the only thing out there.
Oh, man, we can't be.
Nah. And if we are, how special does that make us? And how bad are we just?
Yeah, how
Oh,
sad
big
is that?
Yeah, I go to bed every night listening to how the universe works.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I go to bed with. And just listening to everything is crazy.
And now we know that there's millions of habitable planets
Yeah.
out there.
Right.
You know, they're
Absolutely.
getting what radio signals from Venus or no Jupiter, one of those 2,
Mhm.
receiving radio signals. But I'd really like to talk about Uranus.
Mine or?
Jason.
What kind of signals
Well,
do you
I
get?
thought you'd
I
ask.
need to know.
The signals that are coming out of Uranus right now are just unbelievable.
Do you think we should put our head up there to try to find them or what?
We need to
That's
send
why I
a probe
imagine
to
they would-
Uranus right now. Just really
Not the
probe
first
deep
time
into
I've-
that planet.
Rim shot.
Yeah.
There it is. And I don't mean that type of rim with Uranus. I'm talking anyways. All right.
I got mad at my daughter because in school they're saying it's Uranus, and I got
Oh,
mad.
It is
Like,
not
it's
Uranus.
never been
It
Uranus.
is not.
It
Great.
is, right.
Uranus.
Baggins, Megan's, Uranus. I mean, come on, people.
But you know, why would aliens? I believe they exist, and I mean, during lockdown they came out and said we have off-world vehicles in our possession, and Pentagon's
Oh, yeah.
started back, or Department of Defense started up the UFO stuff again with the last stimulus bill, I believe it was. They said they slipped in. You have 180 days to release all UFO. Like, I really think that they're priming us to tell us something big, you know, because when the Air Force releases footage the Tic Tac video.
Right.
Yep.
You know, so the United States military isn't going to just on a whim release something like this. That's very planned. Anything within the military is going to be very planned from the top down. Like there's something in line. I don't know what it is, but if you're an alien, like we have so much space junk floating around our planet. I guarantee when they fly by, they lock the doors and the windows.
Right. Fill up before
What
they
is this
get
antique
close
shit
and
all
that's all.
flying around us, you know?
Right. I mean, we can't keep our oceans clean. We think with all the extra space out there, we can just float stuff out, you know. It's just like, it's ridiculous, all the stuff floating up there.
But there's probably also like redneck hillbilly aliens, and they're like, "Oh man, space traveler,
I just got a Tesla, just float around out here in space. I got me a brand new car. Oh,
Like vacation timeshares on
That'd be something good."
They came to use the charger.
I wonder if it's difficult to get out those contracts, you know, it is here on Earth, you know, for the space ones. Nope, you're locked in, sorry. Good luck.
Oh, and there's the whole.
I would be shocked if within the next year or two we don't have some kind of announcement coming. I mean, we couldn't handle it with the Orson Welles War of the Worlds. Everybody panicked and went crazy. Of course, we couldn't handle it back then.
Yeah.
I'd like to think we could now.
I think so.
Ends up being the reptile people theories.
Yeah.
Like, oh, how'd that one happen?
I don't know if a lot of like religious people can handle it.
Yeah.
Heaven's Gate?
What's that?
Heaven's Gate?
Yeah.
Well,
They took care of
they don't have
themselves.
to worry about what they can
Well, I know
do.
But I feel like the religious part of it is going to be like not taking it well, but the rest
I
of
mean,
it's
Scientology, they believe along the lines of, you know, the thing in the sky, whatever.
Oh,
They
can you
believe
believe
it's
that
been around
of all
for
the religions, that was the one
Xeons.
that was right? Oh, jeez.
Well, I mean, I don't want to. Nah, I was going to say something that's going to piss people off. You know, the old zombie Jesus joke, you know, about how he died and came back to the later. People believe that happened. So, I mean, I'm not trying to talk trash, but just
You
like,
go back through the whole ancient aliens thing. I mean, even in like biblical passages and stuff, they talk about. Or what was that painting? I can't remember. It was a religious painting, and like in the corners are very clearly a UFO.
It's a UFO.
Right.
Little ladderish kind of thing coming out of it. Bees.
I mean, I've seen that, but yeah. So, what do you think is it that obvious? They saw an alien and why put it in there, or is it the artist just kind of doing it to mess with
Yeah,
people?
honestly, it's probably something the artist did, and we're seeing a UFO. You know.
Yeah.
Um,
But what about the all those hieroglyphics they find
Yeah,
all
the
over
one,
the world?
the helicopter and the jet airplane one.
Yeah, they depict,
The helicopter one, what would that be? I mean,
What about the book of
Yeah.
Ezekiel?
The what?
The book of Ezekiel.
Never heard of
It-
it. Just kidding,
Yeah.
the movie.
It's if you read it, it's basically it almost sounds like the first written down alien abduction.
Sure.
If you read it, it sounds crazy.
You know, it all could be just in plain sight, laid out there, and that's what it is, and we just haven't thought in those terms about
Right.
it.
Yeah. I mean, so that might be black and white, like you said, right in front of us. We don't even know.
Hey, I watched the movie then. I understand what's going to happen here soon.
Killer clowns from outer space.
Yeah.
That's what's gonna happen.
You know, when lockdown happened, a part of me was really hoping for some Mad Max stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was a little excited about that, and I'm a little bummed it never happened.
I bought a car just for that. I was going to pull the fenders off of it, cut the top off, and get ready to roll.
I just about gave myself a mohawk and bought leather pants.
Yeah.
I got the leather pants. My mohawk is way
There's
up.
still time, Johnny, till I get that posted
I
out
was
there.
gonna say, I got clippers upstairs. It's never too late. Oh my god, that is crazy. Yeah, I mean, it got wild for a little bit. I mean, but it brought out some good TV shows. I mean, I worked from home for almost 7 months. I mean, I watched so much cool stuff that you don't have a chance to sit down and watch.
Yeah,
I mean,
but it did give us Tiger King.
Yes.
when everybody watched it, though, it was good entertainment
Sure did.
for 5 minutes, you know, onto the next
Wow.
one, you know. I I can't.
Joe Exotic saved 2020.
That's right.
Gave us something to laugh at.
And he's in the news once more. His husband said they're getting a divorce now.
Oh.
So, and it just
Didn't see
dropped.
that one coming.
That's yeah, right. It's like, you never get out of prison again? Yeah, let's move on. Yeah. So.
How many episodes did you get through on that?
Target?
Yeah.
Oh, it's cool.
Oh god, I can only do 2 episodes, and then I watch the Ghost Adventures one in the house about like.
Oh,
I didn't
that
watch
was
that.
terrible. Oh,
I did not watch
There's
that.
cool stuff that happened in that episode.
Yeah, yeah, there
I
was.
think if it's truly put out the way they
Yeah.
Yeah.
So be it, but I don't know.
When
Yeah.
they're investigating that one dude's trailer and he's in there sleeping.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
With his tiny white.
Oh, did you hear that? Did you hear that noise? It sounds like rustling around, and that dude's like, what are you guys doing in here?
We could, man. What the hell?
But just like we knocked, and yeah, the dude was in there passed out. Come on, he didn't hear you knocking.
That made the cut because there's probably not much else.
Maybe. I
Could
don't
be.
know.
The cut is
It's
pretty
been a
good.
while, but that trailer they found out with disposed whatever, they didn't open it. I mean, with all that gushing stuff coming out of the back of the trailer, that semi-trailer, where they thought they were disposing of units discarded animals.
Yeah, they were
People
opening
or
it.
whatever, possibly.
Did Carol get brought up?
I don't think so.
I don't remember that. Yeah,
think
No,
I don't remember her actually being
Yeah.
there for once.
That would have been like perfect.
Yeah.
no.
No.
That probably would have just ended up in a new lawsuit.
No, I'm sure. Yeah. Or dead. You might have been, murdered. So.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate sell your soul to the devil for fame.
Oh,
You
good
got it.
God.
You're the most famous guy in the
Right.
world, but you're in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
Yeah, you got a little bit up the center, but that's.
That's when you sell your soul and then do a little too much math, then you end up in prison.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yep. Oh my God. I wanted to ask you about the actual Villisca murder. Villisca Axe Murder House. I've asked this to Josh, talking about Josh Hurd of the Malvern Manor. I posed a question to David Oman out at the Oman House in Beverly Hills, California. I'm asking you for the Villisca house itself. How much has this been? I mean, obviously the murder happened going to be 109 years this year, a while ago. How much of the activity is still true to the actual house itself, or because so many people have come in and investigated over and over, have they brought up, or have they created some of this extra activity that's not original to the house?
I don't think the family's there whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think, well, you go back to Reverend Kelly saying a shadow gave him the axe in 1918. Nobody's talking about shadow figures back then. I can remember in the 80s when shadow figures were aliens. Then they were interdimensional time travelers. Now they're the spookiest of ghosts or whatever, And then the whole name Villisca, there's no Villiscas on the planet except for this one.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's Waliska. That was the original name.
Oh.
In the Meskwaki language, Waliska means evil spirit.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder if something else was here that was haunting the place before the murders even happened. And I honestly think at this point the house is just haunting itself. It's like rose red,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I think it's full of stuff. Like the investigators over there tonight, who knows what's they got hanging around them,
Wow.
They go to the Axe House, they're like, oh, this is a party here. We're going to hang out here for a little bit. I mean, there for a while we're getting EVPs in French.
Wow.
Like, and zero French ties to this area.
Wow.
Right.
That's bizarre.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's just, I can't even keep up it with that place anymore. Who knows what's happening. But the stuff that has happened from the time I've been, and I've spent 15 plus years documenting everything that went on in that house, down to time, weather, moon phases, birthdays, anniversaries, anything that looking for a pattern, and I've seen zero pattern to any of it. But a lot of the stuff that would happen is not something a 11-year-old from 1912 would be doing, and assuming we keep the same personality in death as we do life,
Right.
And in the time I've been there, it's changed dramatically. I'd say of all the overnights I've done, every single time was almost completely different. That's why on the Johnny House Reverse, I went trying to talk. I did like 20 episodes, and I don't know how many are even floating around out there. And so backing up a little bit, when Nick asked me to do this, I thought it was just going to be live and then gone forever. So my daughter comes home, she's all mad. She's like, have you read reviews of your show on Amazon? And I'm like, no, because I could care less.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's like, somebody put, don't get this. All the guy does is talk to himself for an hour. I'm like, yeah, that's all I did. Telling the truth. And if I knew it was going to be put on, I probably would have put a little more something into it. It was just supposed to be live.
Right.
But that's why I started I worked with the kids. I did the Native American tie-in. I learned some Meskwaki language, try and ask him that. I tried every possible scenario to figure out what is haunting it. And who knows? I have nothing.
Yeah.
No closer today than I was 15 years ago.
So the land itself being with, the Meskwaki Indian tribe that may have been around, or that was in that area, do you think that has a lot to what
I watched that episode.
created? What the killer did? I mean, just because we're on Indian land everywhere.
Right.
I mean, here in Wichita Indians. I mean, we know that's the Indian tribe. But, here we are, we push these people off the land, or whatever, gave them diseases along the way, or whatever, however anyone wants to spin it. I mean, what'd you say?
We did all of that.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we murdered them along the way, whatever you want to call it, regardless. I mean, there's so much bad things in history, just before we were ever thought of, who's to say that wasn't a part of what created this killer's mind, I don't know for sure.
And Darwin told me that they would bury their enemies face down in shallow graves around here, so they were doomed to walk the earth forever and not pass on. Which back then I'm like, okay, Darwin, here comes the Native American burying ground angle. And then I looked it up, and she's like, yeah, this is all Native American burying ground. And I found the Villisca evil spirit. Wow. Our drugstore is called Stoner Drug, which is hilarious.
Awesome.
Nice.
But, before that, it was called Honeyman Drug. And in the old newspapers, I'm going through the old microfiche machine back when that was a thing. And I found about it for a year long, Honeyman Drug ran an ad for their new cold elixir. And it's stuffy nose, runny, blah, blah, blah. Take our new elixir. 666 was the name of it.
Nice.
And I printed off 100 of these copies because nobody's going to believe this. Okay. But yeah, I mean, that was the cold elixir here in Villisca.
Wow.
Who knows?
Wow. Well, there's a whole thing behind that belief that because the Bible has been translated over and over again, handed down, that 666 may not even be the right number. It may have been 667, 668, allegedly. I mean, I've heard that story. I don't know. I just take whatever for face value.
Well, the handyman loves to make up their own stories.
Well, yeah. I mean, everybody has their own
What is
personal
it?
agenda.
Classic game of
so-
telephone,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really yeah. No, I just didn't know. 'Cause like I said, because people, especially in our day-to-day operation, when we go investigate a home, people are like, "It's a brand new home. I can't wrap my head around why this is haunted." Well, many different reasons. Is it the land that's been here for thousands of years? Is it where the materials of the house was built from? The wood? Is it from? Let's just say it came from a Civil War battlefield. Maybe it holds on to that energy, and now it's in your home. But the most important question I would ask them is, well, did you bring anything antiquish in the home or whatever? And, oh, no, I can't think of anything. And then we go there like, you know what, the more I thought about it, I had this tricycle from my great-grandpa, and then the truth unravels a little bit. It doesn't mean it's necessarily that, but it plays into the whole possible storyline.
And, I've never heard of ghosts being trapped in a house until Beetlejuice came out. So with that whole thing, which I don't know, who knows, maybe they are, but so if you have a guy in a 3-story building that hung himself on the 3rd floor and that building's been demolished, is he 40 feet in the air haunting the sky?
Right.
He's stuck in that spot. And we know now that the entire universe is moving outward. So 100 years ago, the Earth isn't even where it was back then. So is he now in space pretty, you know. It's like,
Oh man, there's
That's
a
true.
show, Space Ghost Hunters.
oh, that's next. That is next.
Space Ghost
Get that
Hunters.
.com right now.
Click, click, click. Mine. No, okay. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, and like you said, now we know how to summon the guy. Just say his name 3 times and he'll be showing things.
Yes.
Just throwing that out there if people want to,
While looking in a mirror.
Yes.
Okay, so the very first paranormal convention I ever went to, I'm listening to a speaker and they're like, never, ever, ever let kids ghost hunt. I'm like, God damn it.
Too late. Too late.
And they're like, never, ever, ever investigate alone. I'm like, I'm screwing this up.
Yep. Over 2.
And I take my daughter with me.
Right.
12, you know, she's been, like, what kid does not go to a cemetery or play Bloody Mary?
Right.
You know, it's like, come on. At least I'm there to show her how to do it and what, you know, it's like, loosen up a little bit.
Exactly.
You shouldn't investigate alone because you could fall through a floor. If that floor is going to fall through, I am smart enough to not walk on it.
Yeah, some of us are.
Yeah, I mean, you
I fell through a ceiling once at a business at a place we were investigating. Through the ceiling, because even the guy in front of me, like the owner, said, "Hey man, we're up here in the attic. Make sure you stand the plywood." I'm like, "Okay, cool." I turn around to the cameraman behind me. Hey man, make sure you stand the plywood. Take another step, and I'm not on the plywood anymore. But I didn't fall all the way through. I got stuck on the floor joint and also the what is called the roof joint. And then also I went on their office, which had a big tall like credenza that broke my fall. Thank God. Man, it hurt like son of a bitch.
Mind you, we were very concerned for him.
You heard the noise.
I
Yeah.
heard the noise and I thought, oh, well, that can't be good. So I made sure it was okay before I started laughing.
Yeah, sure.
You know,
And then they saw the video, and it's like, okay,
I
you can
couldn't
laugh now.
stop
I'm like,
laughing.
oh,
Sorry.
you're on bleeding out. Don't worry. I'm cool, guys. I wasn't bleeding out.
On the Ghost Adventures episode where Chris Deadman's talking about getting scratched and, you know, all this stuff. And so I was there with him that night. And we're doing the Ghost Box session, and he's like, who are you? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like just spacing off, you know. I wasn't paying attention to anything. Chris comes running by me through the kitchen and out the door. I'm like, Chris is running, I'm running too, you know. He's a big dude, and like if this dude's running, I'm right behind him. So he runs down the ramp and he just bites it and slides down. And I died laughing.
Of course.
And he gets up, he's got that Kentucky accent. He's like, felt like somebody cracked me in the ribs with a baseball bat. I was crying. That's like, I love you, Chris. But that was hilarious.
Oh my God. I mean, it's all fun and games once everybody's okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, skull fractures or whatever else, you know, we're all good. Yep. Oh my God. So I gotta ask. Yeah, exactly. We say that for the blooper reel. Yep.
Whenever it comes out.
Never.
I
controlled all the videos. Good luck.
I think I'm the only one that wants it too.
Yeah. No, what I was going to ask you was, so, and you don't have to be honest with me because, I mean, I don't want to, you may have to sign a waiver or whatever. So the stuff they showed on, like, especially like Ghost Adventure, with the names they were getting, just some activity, is it real? I mean, did they really capture that in the moment, or was it for post-production? You can't tell me, because like I said,
An
NDAs.
open book.
Nice.
So, when the shows started coming, mind you, I just kind of started seeing that this, because like when I started having my experiences and didn't believe in ghosts, something happened. I started investigating. Very quickly, the shows started coming. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, is this like pro wrestling? Like, you know?
Right.
And so I watched every producer. Anytime somebody's on their phone, I'm eavesdropping.
Sure.
Like I was like watching these people. I remember for American Ghost Hunter, Chad Kalake's documentary, Ryan Buell's like out on his phone. He's talking about, you know, I don't want this to be a joke. I want to further the field, you know, and like kind of getting loud with this big head honcho, you know, about wanting it to be legit and further the field and not make a joke out of it. I'm like, that's pretty cool. So when Ghost Adventures came, I was there with them the entire night. I was locking them in and out. I'm sitting right next to Billy Tolley, you know, the whole time. And that episode is 100% to a T exactly how that night happened.
Good.
Cool.
Good to know.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
They caught some phenomenal stuff that night. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, it was clear back to season 4 and the show was still real good. So.
That's true. That is true.
And
Yeah.
like the footsteps with the attic door slamming.
Yes.
We were in the back part doing the I Killed 6 Kids EVP that
Right.
were in Marshall. And Roy is the biggest skeptic I've ever met. When they invited him down, I'm like, no, do not do this. Because me and Roy always go at each other.
Oh, I bet.
So we're doing the I Killed 6 Kids bit. And I kind of went out front and I heard a big slam in the house. And I'm like, ooh, I hope that wasn't a camera on a tripod or something. So I told them, it's like, something crashed in there. And they instantly backed up audio, video. There was the door. No one was in the house. Everyone was in the back of the barn.
Nice. It's phenomenal. I mean, thank you for doing that, Johnny, because this is a great segue. I'm going to play that video right now, matter of fact, of all that. That I Killed 6 Kids and also the door slamming. Now, the thing that's most important in this video right here is get a look at the young guy in the video that doesn't have the big beard quite yet. Not wearing a hat.
Boy band.
That's the most important thing.
I didn't recognize him.
Not the ghost activity, it's the young go-getter at that time. Still a skeptic.
The chin strap.
Give me a second, I'll get that queued up here real quick here. But yeah, no, I'm glad you confirmed that for me, because I talked to David Owen out in his house. I got to go out there and investigate a couple years back ago, and he told me what Ghost Hunters had presented was not 100% truthful. Some of it was their own people doing the audio and stuff. I'm like, don't tell me that, man, because some of that audio is phenomenal. And I'm like, I hope this isn't, especially with this episode of the Villisca Murder Axe, Villisca Axe Murder House. What they caught that night was phenomenal. I'm just like, please tell me that's real. So
yeah, that whole, I mean, even how they edited it and put it together, the timeline, everything was exact, 100%. And I can say with like Ghost Lab, you know, Kindred Spirits, like all the shows that's been there have been legit. 'Cause
Awesome.
I've been there watching to make, you know.
perfect.
Good.
And I know the evidence at this point. I know what comes out of that place, and I know the voice and the vocal inflection of the EVPs that come out of there. So if somebody plays me an EVP, I can tell you right now if it's from the house or not, because I've heard them a million times. And like the EVPs are like, yep, that's the voice.
Wow.
And I wanted Ghost Lab to do like vocal inflection software to show that all these EVPs are the same
Yeah, that'd
person
be cool.
speaking. But yeah,
Wow.
it renewed my faith in TV a little bit.
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good.
I know we've done some pilot filming ourselves, and they tried to get us to fake thing, and it came off as too scripted. And we're not doing that. It was terrible. Yeah. I'm not an actor. I'm never going to be an actor, but
Yeah.
I'm
I
a
couldn't
ghost
do
hunter.
it.
Yeah, it
Well, this
was.
isn't about acting.
It wasn't good for us, but here's the episode of Ghost Adventures. I'll throw it up here for everybody. Hopefully, you guys even in our Zoom party can hear it. If not, I'll play it afterwards. But
Okay.
give me a second here. Get things turned on here. 1 second.
Ooh.
I knew it.
So we brought in the Villisca Axe Murder House resident paranormal investigator and tour guide
Sure,
John
we'll
Hauser,
honor that.
along with fellow investigator Roland
Wow.
Sains, to see if
No,
they
these
recognize
guys-
this. And they deciphered it as saying,
I heard it began. I killed. Hold on.
"Go ahead."
Hey, it's Mom.
Right. Doesn't it sound like a guy that's out of breath? Even our skeptics said, it sounds like someone's swinging back. Someone's swinging
So we brought in the Villisca Axe Murder House resident paranormal investigator and tour guide John Hauser, along with fellow investigator Roland Sains, to see if they recognize this voice. And they deciphered it as saying,
I heard it began. I killed. Hold on.
"Go ahead."
decay is common.
Right. Doesn't it sound like a guy that's out of breath? Even our skeptics said, it sounds like someone's swinging that. Someone's swinging that.
Every hour. Every hour.
Wow.
All right. So that was the video from that night from the boy band himself. I'm just kidding. No, man. I mean, we all got our pictures that were like, oh god, why are we showing this? I mean, it is what it is. It's on camera forever. But that's all right. But no, I'm glad you told me the whole story behind that because that EVP is very, very awesome. And like you said, you saw Roy Miller in the very. He was the guy with the glasses sitting there. He was a former law enforcement person, so he was real skeptical about everything as far as paranormal goes. He's like, I'll listen to it, but it may not be real. You know what I mean? Until you can tell me otherwise, which is very fascinating.
He's kind of the guy that really, him and I work. Like he's the man on the history, and I kind of learned all the history off of him, like poking his brain with questions and stuff. But he won't entertain the ghost stuff whatsoever. Like on the episode, he's like, I think it's all hogwash.
He did say that. Yep.
Malarkey.
The fact that he came down and they took out that recorder out of a package, put brand new batteries in it, said, look, 0 files.
Yep.
It said hit record, walk around, ask questions. If you hear anything outside, mark it so we don't mistake anything. They took it out of his hand, Billy plugged it into his laptop, hit play. And there was nothing for a while, and then that was right there. And Billy, like watching him, he'll just like look at the wavelength. He's like, oh, here's one. And he'll go right to it. It's like, wow, that's pretty talented.
Yeah, see, that's kind of hit and miss with that, because, I mean, there's sometimes we've caught, well, I mean, that one was, if you watch the wave, like you said, it's there, it's very prominent. But we've been on a couple things where I pointed out to the clients, I'm like, now, most of the time you see our voices talking, doing that wavelength. This is not being picked up anywhere, but it's still an audible voice that we caught. And that's kind of, obviously, to me, a little bit more compelling than just as much, because it's like, holy crap. How do we not capture this, kind of a thing. Yeah. But that's cool.
I did a thing with Mark and Debbie Constantino in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Nice.
We took 8 of the exact same digital recorders, got a big pack of batteries, so all the batteries were out of the same pack, put them on the exact same settings. So you got same make, model, settings, batteries, everything.
Nice.
They're touching each other. They're all lined up. 3 of them would get EVPs where the others wouldn't.
Wow.
So it's like, then I got to think, can ghosts like direct who they want to hear? I've been in places to where I'm like, my buddy's going, you're not hearing this? You're not, like, it's going crazy. I'm like, I'm experiencing nothing.
Well, that reminds me of we have more than one instance of our walkie-talkies we always use in several different places. They're all in the same channel. They're not big military-grade ones where you can pick them up from a way away.
Yeah, store-bought.
And we'll have somebody come through and talk on 1 or 2 of them, and the rest of the people won't hear it.
Yeah.
Well,
we've also had recorders do that where it'll be in the same room, like I'll have mine in my hand holding it out in the open, which should pick up a little bit more distance because it's not being blocked by anything, the microphone. And like let's say yours, for instance, would be stationary on a desk. Yours sounds either better or, whatever, or it won't pick it up. It's like we're in the same vicinity. How does, like you just said, how is that even possible? You'd think everything would get picked up, and it doesn't always.
Yeah.
It's like it can choose precisely where it wants to.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that's disappointing is I'm sure you can attest to this, you'll hear something in the room with you, the most loud EVP, sound, whatever you want to call it, and then you go back to your recorder and it's like, just a little blip. Yeah.
So if
I'm like, why? You were so audible that night. What happened?
So if they can choose what device they want to be heard on, then that implies that they know what we're doing with them, and that they choose their interactions, which is a sort of interesting way to look at it, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I've kind of thought, like, we're all on our own journey, our own path of trying to why we're doing this, I had horrible times at the Sally House in Atchison, Kansas. I've talked to people that are like, "Oh, we didn't have nothing."
I had
You know,
an
and it's like-
interesting time there.
It's like my journey may have a big part at this place where my buddy who's right next to me, it may not pertain to his journey. You know, it's almost like we're on our own choose your own adventure,
Yeah.
Right.
you know, to where we could all be at the Axe House and you could have something huge happen that because it's supposed to happen to you, for your own journey and your own understanding and stuff, which may not pertain to me.
True.
Yeah, I think perception is just everything in this
Right.
field, for sure.
Definitely.
And we all perceive everything completely different. You know, I always tell my buddy and I talk, we've known each other forever, and I'm like, the past does not even exist. He's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, you and I were at the same party 20 years ago, and we remember it completely different.
Wow.
So really, it doesn't even exist, you know, because I perceived it this way, you perceived it that way. Who knows what happened?
Wow. That's an interesting thing. I never thought about it. It makes all the sense in the world, but yeah. I mean, so what really happened?
Yeah, our brains make shortcuts, you know, because if we were to see every detail and hear all the bugs and the people talking and the cars driving by and there's just too much, we'd go insane.
Yeah.
So our brain blocks out all kinds of things and it creates shortcuts, and we all see everything completely differently.
Agreed. Wow. That is fascinating. Let's go back, switch back to, I do want to ask you if you'll talk about it, Sally House, here in just a little bit, but let's go back to the part 2 to that. You talked about the I Killed 6 People. You guys are all down in the barn area, I believe, is where you're viewing this audio. At this time, upstairs, nobody's in the house at all, and something happens that I find very fascinating. You can hear a couple different things and see something visual, so let's get that played here.
Analyzing the audio in the barn next door. And what really shocked us is that right before the door slammed shut, you can hear these unexplained footsteps approaching it.
All the way. Sounds like they do a little double step or
Analyzing the audio in the barn next door.
That's crazy. Two steps and then they kick the door.
Yeah.
And what really shocked us is that right before the door slammed shut, you can hear these unexplained footsteps approaching it.
Wow.
Sorry, I played it twice through, every time we put through. Yeah, that's fascinating stuff. I mean, the fact, like you said, that's what you see is what you get. That's pretty incredible.
So that they filmed is summer, and if you watch the whole episode, like during the initial walkthrough of the house, like you can see it on me. I'm like pitting like a crazy. I'm sweating. It's so hot, and there's zero wind. Like that night was so hot, and there was not even an ounce of breeze at all, and no one was in that. I mean, there's just no way, no way. You know, I heard it. Everybody was in
Yeah, I mean, that door came all the way around. It wasn't like it was like half open. It was open all the way around on the wall.
Yeah.
Because even
slammed that.
Because even if they, let's just say for this conversation piece, if it had been fake, you know, you would have to have something yank on that door pretty good. You know? Yeah.
Right, well,
Slam
like
it.
you said, Dan, while we were watching it, the footsteps almost sound like they did like a kick in the
Step
air.
and
Yeah, they
kick.
kicked the door.
You can hear it like just
Like a little side step
smash
kick,
forward.
like you kicked the door open.
Which door was that, Johnny?
That was
Or
the
kicked
attic
the
door.
closed.
That's what I thought. Okay, I wanted to double check because I mean I watched all the videos and stuff like that from what you put out to some of the angles always look a little different. Of course, at the time there's no bed in there when this is being filmed. It's an empty room, if I'm correct, I think.
That camera was sitting at the baseboard of the parents' bed.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
like sitting right by the lake, panning into the attic in the kids'
Okay.
room.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Which is
So it was actually leaned up against the parents' bed.
oh, okay. Which is crazy to think, man, that the killer, as everybody thought, or thinks, came, waited in the attic till this family came home from church and went to sleep and everything. Then immediately attacked the parents, went to the other more children sleeping in the opposite room, and then decided to go downstairs and kill the two, the Stonehenge girls.
Yep.
They killed them in the guest room downstairs, and allegedly came back up and started hitting the father again, which, I mean, I don't want to get too graphic, but I mean, they couldn't see his eye after the fact,
Well, then there was the 4-pound piece of bacon or whatever.
Oh, yeah, what was up with the bacon?
I think he might have rolled up and
do we know yet?
had a good time with.
There was food left at the table where this person did eat after they did this. But the bacon that was in Ina and Lena's room, I've read 3 different actual detective note reports. One said it was ham wrapped up in cheesecloth. Another said it was raw bacon unwrapped. And I can't remember what the other one was. So this happened. They were taken, they were buried. Months and months go by. And the writer for the newspaper comes out with a headline, and this is the exact headline. No doubt the work of a sexual pervert because he did it naked with underwear on his head.
What?
Wow.
And I'm just like, huh? And I really think, and the idea of this person using it to masturbate with, which is so, weird. Like, who's the first dude that looked at that and was like, huh, what could I do? It's just like, this is so bizarre. None of that was even a thing until that article came out.
Oh, my God.
And I think it's just newspapers trying to sell sensational news.
Right.
Sell copies. They never checked to see if anyone was molested or anything weird like that. Lena was not posed provocatively like I've read.
Oh, I didn't.
Her arm was off the bed and her leg was off the bed. And she was kind of like up like that.
Yeah.
Her underwear, she wasn't wearing underwear. Neither was her sister. Like, you had one pair for the week back in those days.
Right.
So that was pretty normal not to wear them to bed. They found the underwear. He wiped the blade of the axe off with them, and they were under the bed. Now, if you go in that room, directly behind the bed, within reaching distance is a dresser. I think that they'd put their underwear on the dresser and went to bed. I think he went in, killed them, just reached behind, grabbed whatever, wiped the blade of the axe, threw the underwear under, sat the axe down. I mean, it's just a fluid movement.
Right.
Wow.
I don't think, and I hope that's the case.
Sure.
Because how horrible if not, but.
Yeah.
But you say he did sit down and eat before he left, huh?
Yeah, definitely made a meal and ate.
See, I haven't heard that part of it.
The women, they came in, the mob of people, and this is all from the doctor. Before the mob of people go in, the doctor takes out a notepad and pencil, and he's writing down the crime scene. And then once the mob of people come in, the women knew instantly that Sarah was a very meticulous housekeeper, and you wouldn't leave food out like that at night, because that's when you get mice coming in. But then they started wiping up all the blood because they're like, Sarah would never want people to see her house like this. And the men pass the axe around, and there goes the crime scene.
Wow.
The mirrors were covered with sheets.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, yeah. Why do you think that is? I mean, I know what the report is, that you don't want to look at himself supposedly, or what's your take on that?
We do a lot of our business is doing continuing education classes for Supreme Court judges, law enforcement, forensics colleges and stuff. All the forensics guys say, cover the mirror because he doesn't want them to see what he did, indicating he knew the people because he felt bad. But I say, you have to know someone to feel bad about killing them.
Sure.
So the covering of the faces and the covering of the mirrors is, in today's forensics and profiling, definitely a sign of remorse.
Wow.
But Ina and Lena's room had a door on it with an oval window cut out in the door. That was covered with a sheet. Why would you cover that?
Wow.
I just tell people you can't rationalize crazy. it made sense to this person, but
Yeah.
Right.
who knows why?
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to ask you after we wrap up a little bit. I mean, I just got plenty of time. Don't get me wrong, but I want to know who you think did it. Don't tell me yet. 'Cause I think I know which way you're leaning. But I want to make sure before I just guess. But which brings me to the next video I have. It's still from the Ghost Adventures night. They hit on the name through the SB7 Spirit Box, which cracked me up because this is season 4, episode 13, back in what 2012, episode 12. Was it back in 2008 maybe? Or was it later? 2011 I think is what they said. But the thing is, he was talking to somebody, I can't remember which guy was on the outside, it might have been, I think he said the guy with the southern accent that fell.
Chris Deadman.
Yes, him. I think he was talking about he got a good EVP on Spirit Box, and actually, oh yeah, you like that? You use it? It's like now, they use it a lot in all the episodes up to this day, and we use it too, because yes, it's a modified radio, but we've also had all of our names called through individual places where we're in the middle of nowhere, no radio stations, and then this thing on command says our name. It's just like, how do you refute that, other than if somebody knows we're there or whatever?
And we had that same Spirit Box go, F you, you know?
Wow.
And that's not on Country Sunshine Radio.
Right. Me and Renee had an experience at a place in Dodge City like that, where it spewed all kinds of stuff that is wholly not radio friendly.
Right.
And so we're just like, well, how can this be fake? Because you're not just accidentally picking this up on some radio channel.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's go to this next episode, or next clip I have. It's they're doing the Spirit Box session. It's just Zach, Aaron, and Nick. That's how old this episode is. Nick was still on there, which those are the better episodes. Let me rephrase that. Some of the new episodes aren't bad. It's just
but the good old days was
they didn't seem so raw and genuine like they did back during these episodes. That's what I love. So let's go play this next episode. It's I won't tell you what it is yet, but we'll see what everybody thinks. Maybe. Oh, what happened?
Oh, I think that sounds like computer noises.
There we go. It was. All right, here we go.
Give us a name. What is the murderer's name? What is the murderer's name?
On June 18, 1912, Andy Sawyer was detained by the sheriff as a suspect in the Villisca axe murders. The day after the incident, this deranged homeless man made crazed mutterings about the murder to his employer, along with several suspicious relevant actions. His employer's son witnessed Andy Sawyer suddenly jump up and say to himself, "I will cut your damn heads off." At the same time, Andy made striking motions. It was also a fact that Andy Sawyer slept with his axe.
Give us a name. What is the murderer's name? What is the murderer's name?
On June 18, 1912, Andy Sawyer was detained by the sheriff as a suspect in the Villisca axe murders. The day after the incident, this deranged homeless man made crazed mutterings about the murder to his employer, along with several suspicious relevant actions. His employer's son witnessed Andy Sawyer suddenly jump up and say to himself, "I will cut your damn heads off." At the same time, Andy made striking motions. It was also a fact that Andy Sawyer slept with his axe.
All right, so there's that thing. I don't know. I mean, the fact that they got Andy on there now, Andy could be anybody. It didn't say Andy Sawyer. It didn't say, hey, he's a homeless guy. So take it for what it is. But the fact that they hit on something I find pretty intriguing. What do you think about that?
The very first show I ever did was on Travel Channel called My Ghost Story. It wasn't the ghost story that everybody's thinking of. It was before that, totally different. And I told them that you walk into a room where somebody has an argument, you feel that negative energy. It's real. And we know that energy doesn't disappear. So what if someplace like this that had an atom bomb of nuclear or negative energy dropped on it that just soaked itself in the house, and maybe that negative energy can portray whatever it wants to be. And the reason I said that was people would do EVP sessions in the house, ask who the killer was, everybody was getting hundreds of different names that nobody's ever heard of until I went back through the old detective notes. So when this happened, detectives questioned people for 5 years.
Wow.
5 years is a long time.
Wow.
By 3 years, people are just creating their own motives in their head.
Right.
So there wasn't just 3 or 4 suspects.
Sure.
There were hundreds of old man so-and-so is weird, he did it, which went nowhere.
Right.
But F.F. Jones, Andy Sawyer, Blackie Mansfield, Reverend Kelly all went nowhere. Nobody had heard of these names until I started going back through the detective notes. One of the names is a guy who owned the shoe store in town who got in a fight with JB about parking his horse and buggy in front of his shop. He was a suspect for like an hour, then dismissed. His name came out on EVP.
Oh, wow.
And so did other townspeople's names. So I was like, whatever's in here is just messing with people.
Wow.
Throwing out random names that are actual people who lived here in town that actually were suspects at some point.
That's crazy.
And I thought that was like a big revolutionary thing and they turned that into the killers in the house. It's like, not what I was meaning.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
It wasn't where this was going.
So you get Andy, which they got Andy, and it's probably alluding to Andy Sawyer.
Sure.
So-and-so got Jones. The other show got this name.
Yep.
It's the house is messing with. They're just like, okay, Joe. You know?
Yeah.
Just totally screwing with people.
Wow.
And they're all real names of real people, which is super creepy.
That is crazy. We talked about that just recently. Jake, he watched Kindred Spirits, not for the Villisca house, but just in
I
general.
watched that one today.
Did you watch it? Okay. This is a different episode. This is the Zombie Boy episode that just aired for this last season. And they made up a whole storyline of things.
Yeah, because the lady at the house thought that maybe this zombie boy that people were talking about was something the people that had been coming through had created.
Right.
And they made the whole scenario off grounds, not at the house, made their game plan, and then implemented it, and it was pretty amazing how it was like it was listening to what they were saying about it, and so later when they were asking questions, it answered them in the way they wanted it to.
Yeah.
It almost proved that the people had created
clear-cut EVPs of
this entity there.
Yeah. And
so I did and I've never talked about this one to anyone, I don't think. So, man, it's been 10 plus years ago. I did a documentary with Brad and Barry Kling from Ghost Lab. And we flew down to Texas and stayed at Barry's house for 2 weeks and slept in his son's bed. But we the whole thing was on perception, power of persuasion and perception. And we got this one location and we got 10, put an ad on Craigslist. Need a ghost hunting team, We got like a bunch of different teams, choreographed the times and days, and I'd go in there with them, and I'm like, okay, this was Grandma Betsy's house. She's a sweet old lady, a lot of times you'll smell brownies cooking, blah, blah, blah. They would start investigating, and that would heavily be like the evidence they got. Well, the halfway through, Brad and Barry would turn on the lights and do why don't you guys take a seat? Everything we just told you completely made up, which was so awkward.
Yeah.
I felt like I was on To Catch a Predator.
I was going to say, so you came to talk to a 14-year-old girl. Have a seat.
Then the next group, I'm like, Mad Doctor lived here. He killed a bunch of patients. They're still finding bones and body pits out back. They got that evidence. And then I thought, how can I take this even further? Like, did you guys just hear that? It's like, oh yeah, we heard it.
Wow.
Was it a voice? Yeah. I go, did something like, just the dumbest noise I can make. And they're like, yeah, we heard it. I'm like, oh no. I never release this, and I never will, because I don't want anything bad, you know. But it just shows, like we did 10 teams. One of the teams were like, "Wow, that's great! Thank you guys for doing that." And we're gonna, reformat how we do things. just so that doesn't influence us. But the others were bad.
Oh, I bet. See, that's what I kind of. Go ahead, sorry.
But they were getting actual EVPs and stuff.
I was gonna
pertaining
say.
to Grandma Betsy, the Mad Doctor. Like,
And so do the spirits play along too?
I was gonna say, it
Do
sounds
they
like
go
it.
along with the suggestion as well?
well, this house had no inkling of activity.
Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
So it was like, are they projecting this?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just wanted to put out the thing like, don't think too much in this direction. when you're
Right.
doing these be open to whatever,
Right.
because it could influence how you investigate. But it turned into, okay, we got EVPs pertaining to this, so are they like projecting it into the location, like the hotel with the woman with the white dress that comes down the staircase that killed herself on her wedding? Like, you can finish it, never happened, but guests
Right.
see it. Are they projecting that?
That's crazy. I mean, it's not unheard of. We talk about Google Ghost Hunters. Jason
It's through the realms of like a tulpa. You talk about it enough, it can happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we talked about, like I said, Jason and Grant's book, the original books that
Right.
brought out with this lady. Well, the story is, go ahead, Jason, the story better. Because I don't want to butcher
So
it.
yeah, like when we first started going, well, when I first started getting into all this, back in 09 or whatever, I read Jason and Grant's book, and they talk about how they went to a house, and she always said that there's a spirit of a girl in a room that she sees playing, then she sees her running down the stairs, then she sees her trying to get through the door, the front door, banging on it. And so they're there, and they go up the stairs, and sure enough, they see the girl running down the stairs. And it goes right through Jason, and it freaks him out, but he's like, oh, okay, I just saw that. So they later go on and talk to the friend of this lady who owns the house, and he notices a picture of her mantle, and it resembles the girl that he saw run toward him. She goes, well, no, that's me and so-and-so. That's the person that you're talking to at the house. She's the owner.
Right.
And so
Still alive.
basically, she's still alive, but she had such a traumatic moment in her life that she is presenting herself as a child in that room because her father was attacking her. She was running from the house. That is her going down the stairs. Then she has nowhere to go, so she's outside the door banging, and she's still living in that house today as an adult, but she's seen herself as a child, and that's what's haunting her.
So it's like a residual negative.
Yes.
haunted.
Crazy, but yet believable.
Right.
So, Nick was telling me that he went back, this wasn't long ago, to where they did the very first Ghost Adventures documentary. And he said he's just walking around in there, and he's seen himself walk past a door holding a camera.
What?
Oh, shit.
Holy shit.
So now he's very much, and I am too, into mirrored dimensions.
Wow.
Are these even ghosts, or are these slips in time
That's
that are
wild.
playing over and
Well,
over?
that's a whole nother take.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he's pretty big on that.
That's awesome. That is crazy.
Yeah, I like that.
The
Okay.
gold mine, whatever, Goldfield, whatever hotel is that
Yep.
one? Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so do you believe our spirit or our soul is actually capable of projecting such things?
I think that, like, mirrored in multiple dimensions, like 10 years ago that was fringe science, like, yeah, you're a quack. Now scientists are really delving, it's a thing now. It's
Right.
pretty widely accepted that there's, like dimension upon dimension upon dimension, and so every thought that we think is that existing in a different dimension, and it's
Right.
these little scenes in time are just being played over and over and over and over in that spot,
Okay.
so if you see the little kid running down the steps, that's just replaying from a mirrored dimension close to ours. And
Wow.
it's just all these little dimensions make,
Yeah.
It's over my head.
We could have rabbit hole.
That could explain so much because, we go out to Dodge a lot. And we go to the Depot Theater. We've been going there since 2011.
11, yeah.
And from that point to now, and you guys could probably attest to, like, from our stories to what you guys have experienced now,
Yeah.
it just keeps changing and evolving to, like, totally different things.
Yet there's parts of it that always stay the same.
Kind of,
And there's other parts that evolve.
It's just...
Every day I'll go into the Axe house and scream the same word. I'm just waiting to see if somebody gets an EVP of that word.
Right.
Oh, that'd be
Just to
cool.
to test this out. My own, could be a horrible way to test it, but I'm just throwing it out there to see, and it's the most obscure thing. If somebody comes to me with that EVP, it's gonna be like, okay, they just caught me saying this yesterday.
You know it's going to happen now.
That would freak me out a bit.
Well, it's like taking that moment, and what he's doing is taking that, and the house is like maybe collecting it and presenting it.
Yeah, we need to go to Sally House and catch Johnny on the recorder real quick.
Yeah, exactly. One of our viewers, Rhett Meyer Latrell, said maybe it's our doppelganger. That's what we're seeing as being projected, possibly. Which, I gotta say, I have met the closest thing to my doppelganger a few years back, and the only difference was this guy was a little taller, he's only like 5'9". This guy was about 6'1", a little heavier than me, a lot heavier than me, and we saw each other like, holy shit, dude. So you're the guy everybody's talking about, they see us, but you look a little different than what I look like. Of course, that's time I had a big beard. But, I mean, it was a split image. It was creepy, but then we became friends. It's like, holy shit, dude, this is wild.
You're a good-looking guy.
I'm the same, man. I won't go that far. But it's just wild. Have you ever met your doppelganger or seen somebody who looks like you, possibly?
I get people posting, hey, I thought this was you, like some random dude with tattoos and a beard.
Has a red beard versus black, dark beard. It's like, yeah, it's me.
One thing I've noticed that's happened to me is so I believe the psychic phenomena exists. I think there's a lot of people that say they are that maybe aren't,
right.
Because I've had people, I've worked with Sylvia Brown and telling me how psychic they are for an hour.
Yep.
And so, but I've noticed the longer that I've been doing this and the longer I've been in these places, well, just 2 days ago, I take my daughter out to eat at a Mexican restaurant. And in my mind, I seen her stick her straw in her drink and blow it at me, the liquid. And I was like, that's weird. She wouldn't be that dumb to do that to me.
Right.
And then she did it. I seen it happen, and then she did it. And I'm like, whoa, that's weird. That's just, and it's such a random, it's not, we all do the think of a friend and they call or grab their phone,
Yep.
But that is such a random thing to happen.
Right.
Stick a story. I never thought about that in my entire life, and boom.
So do you think you projected her or willed it to her kind of a thing that made her do it?
Maybe, or maybe that as we spend more time in these places, we kind of hone into different abilities that we didn't know we have or that everybody had,
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I always find it hard, like I said, people, if you got to come into a place, whether you're there as an actual ghost investigator or a guest or we do a lot of public events, and the people, as soon as they open their mouth and say, I'm a psychic, I'm leading on this, and then you feel the attention focuses on them, whatever they say is fact, and I'm like, but that's not true because we've been here 100 times and we know what's fact versus tradition kind of a thing.
And a lot of the ones that tell me how psychic they are over and over, when they walk into the room, they gotta wiggle their fingers.
Oh, God.
I don't know if that's
I'm drinking it in, yes.
I'm seeing
crystal ball.
Yes, exactly. And I always say that if you got to advertise, if you got to come out and physically say, not advertise so much, that's a bad word. If you got to physically say, hey, just so you know I'm psychic, well then you're trying to
I'm with you. I have 1 or 2 people that I truly trust Liam being one.
Right, one of our good friends.
And
right.
but others that keep coming to our group that says, you know, I have a gift.
Are you
I just want to bang my head against the wall.
It seems like every time we do a group, anything now, one or two new ones show up.
Especially those who have watched this for a few times. I just can't do it.
Well, like I always say, I think all of us have those tendencies or gifts. We may not know how to use them. We may not be able to use them. It's just unlocking that key, possibly, getting the right key to unlock that part of us. Because, I mean, all these years, I have a gift, Charlie, just so you know. I'm just kidding around. I'm joking. No, all these years of doing stuff, just even as young kids up to, to the present time, it's just like, I hear some stuff, and I look at everybody, I'm like, you guys not seeing and hearing this shit? Am I crazy? I'm losing my damn mind? And that's one thing I'll do in the best way, yeah. I've done lots of that a long time ago. But one thing I'll do in an investigation, I'll look at everybody once I hear something or see something, I'll look see people, are they talking, moving, whatever. Is that they're reacting to what I'm hearing? And then I'll speak after a couple of seconds, I'm like, okay, you guys hear that? Kind of a thing. Like, no. And then I let it be. We go back to audio, video, and it's there. It's not me. Maybe it's me projecting it. Maybe it is what it is.
So the Brad and Barry Kling documentary, we had a part 2 to all this. And it was a whole different location. And we put out the Craigslist. If you're psychic, call us.
Psychic hotline, this Cleo.
So we had 10 psychics, and we picked them up at an undisclosed location. Cameras are rolling. Get in the van. We drive an hour to the location. That
sounds like human trafficking.
Yeah, that's before.
No, just kidding.
And cameras are rolling the whole time. They get out of the vehicle, and I go, do your thing. 9 of them failed miserably. 1 nailed stuff we were talking about.
Really?
Yeah. And the whole time, we had a friend of mine. So Kathy Cash, which is Johnny Cash's daughter, was remote viewing the entire thing down, and she was nailing stuff. Like, she is super talented.
Wow.
Another one that doesn't blow my mind is Mr. Chip Coffey.
Yes.
That guy, I seen him work down with Kindred Spirits at the Axe House, and he was nailing stuff that nobody knows. Stuff that I haven't told anyone.
That's
that
awesome.
Dude's the real deal.
That's awesome. That's what I love, seeing people like that can really. And it's not public knowledge, like you said, and it's not the obvious, it's this guy, it's that guy, it's an axe, that was a murder weapon. It's the stuff that, like you said, this person was found a certain way that was never disclosed, or whatever, something, like you said. That's what I find intriguing. Like I said, we have encountered a couple of people who have these tendencies or, can do this stuff, and we work closely with them as much as we can. And I know Chip is a guy that's always been on my bucket list, too. I never actually met him, but I'd love to reach out to him and see, pick his mind apart. Yeah, because, I mean, he's just seems like he has it, and that's awesome.
And I just love his attitude. He's just like, doesn't care.
Yeah. Yes.
He's like, I'm going to tell you what happened, and I don't care what you think.
Exactly.
But the place we took him was, and I think they're doing overnights and stuff now. It's an old ghost town in South Texas where all the outlaws, it was like Vegas for outlaws back in those days. They would all just go there and go crazy. But the whole thing was run by a female outlaw named Sally Skull, which is her real name. And she had her own gang of banditos that she was in control of. And, well, they finally got tired of just drinking all the time. So they would tie hands together and fight to the death in brawls out there.
Oh, see, that's kind of fun.
And Brad was like, man, just like the old gladiator days. And this lady goes, I feel like they would like watch people fight for sport like the old gladiator days. Exactly what Brad said. And nobody knew this history. I mean, it's just one of the many outlaw stories in Texas, but is less known. I never heard of it. Sally Skull, like, who is this lady?
I never heard either.
No idea.
I'm going to read about her.
I'll look her up now. I have to know.
Yeah, I'm going to research it right away. Trust me.
I wrote her down.
Yeah. Holy crap.
In your, I know this is a different thing that we're talking about, but on your Johnny Villisca versus the Villisca house. You did the Gansfield experiment.
Yep.
Yep.
Have you done that since that episode, or have you done it at any other place alone, or would you?
Yeah, that's kind of like one of my fun little things I like to do at places. Is like, ooh, I want to do that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I've had Malvern. I've done it a bunch in Axe House so many times. Sally House, we did it.
Yep.
But I like my thought is, I think a lot of these places feed on fear, and I know the Axe House does. They just feed on that vulnerable thing. So it's like, put the chair in front of the attic with my back facing the attic, tie me to this chair so I can't get out, blindfold me, like put just static in my ears, cut off all senses, you name it, and just leave, lock the house, go.
Right.
Come back in an hour, you know. And I think just being cutting off all your senses, you know. But one of the worst times was at the Malvern Manor, and I was in the nurse's wing, and I was doing it, and everybody decided I'd been in too long for whatever reason. Oh, we need to pull them out, you know. And I'm sitting there, and my hands are tied behind the chair, and I can feel somebody untying them. Like, oh man, I hope the camera's catching this. This is amazing. I hope it unties. And like getting kind of freaked out, and all of a sudden I hear, Hauser! And there was a shock wave that went down my entire body. I was dropping in my pants. Because my buddy, he like pulled the headphone out. He's like, Hauser!
Oh,
Like, you've been in long enough. It's like, you gotta give me a warning.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the Gansfield experiment, we've done a couple locations. There's one that was pretty awesome for sure. I mean, just because we were able to dive more into it. I've done it a couple times myself. I think pretty much everybody here has done it. The thing is, I just on, especially on Johnny versus Villisca Axe Murder House, you talk about mentioning it should be about 30 minutes underneath there on that first step, or that one episode, the very last episode, excuse me, on Amazon Prime. It's episode 6. But it was funny because the first guy that ever tried it for us chickened out about maybe 15, 20 minutes into it.
Yep.
I can't do it anymore. It touched my crotch. I'm like, okay, dude, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways. So I was like, I'll do it. And I jumped in there and I laughed. I couldn't even did it.
It was like 50 plus.
Oh,
It was over an hour.
Hour and a half, I want to say. I stopped myself. Like, I felt like you couldn't just wait around in the dark room watching me. I'm like,
But I wanted to stop it, sooner because you were like really kind of getting emotional with like how it was like approaching you, touching you,
I don't even remember
doing
that.
things. Yeah, and but I kept going because you were doing okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no, I could pretty much cut myself off at that point. The first time I ever did it, I'm like, okay, I feel like these guys are just like, okay, dude, we get it, you can do this kind of a thing. Enough, wrap up kind of a thing. We did a Halloween special, what we did, and we did that live on air, and we had some interesting things, but one of the ones I've done in a different place was this basement here in Wichita is an old part of where it's called the Lano District. It's where the old West red light district used to be back in the days, and I was doing this investigation. Once again, live on air, on Facebook Live and whatnot, and doing this Gansfield experiment, and I'm hearing this female come up behind me and talk to me, whisper in my ear, and then I start feeling something on my leg, like, and I even describe it as like, oh man, I feel like a snake is slithering around my leg, whatever, This is the second time we've been to this location. The first time we got to the spirit box, I said, what are you? It's a demon. I kind of laughed off, like, whatever, sure, whatever. Yeah. And then this is the second time I'm doing the Gansfield there. And basically, I wrap it up. So we started doing it with another session of Gansfield with somebody else. And then a couple guys grab a Ouija board, I don't know why, but just for funsies, I guess we'll call it. They start doing the Ouija board. They come up with a name, and it's a name I know they can't pick out of a hat, we'll say. They don't know this unless they're just things I don't know about these guys. Anywho, they say a name, and instantly I'm like, I know that name. I pick it up, I stop because I was holding the camera filming. I start Googling all of it, I list the demon names. I pull it up, sure shit, it's a name that's a demon name. It's a female who takes the snake-like serpent form basically and starts whatever, you know. It wasn't a terrible demon name. I mean, it wasn't the worst demon you could think of out there, but it's still a demon. I'm like, holy shit, dude. My mind is just blown in that moment because I had this experience about 30 minutes before that. I'm like, holy shit, did I really encounter this demon? I don't know. But it happened in the Gansfield is what I'm trying to get to. But it was mind blowing.
Yeah, I've had like one time where, well, it's at Malvern, and there's a white door, and I seen something walk across the white door, and it looked like a little kid's stick figure that they would draw, and it was very like jagged and just like across, and I'm like just staring at it. And at first I'm like, what did Josh put in his brownies that I And so I go home and I can't shake it. Like I keep thinking about this thing, and so I'm like typing in stick figure, like anything I can, and I finally typed in paranormal stick figure, and like on page 10 I found this old website, and I click on it, and it's a drawing of exactly what I saw, which is like a paranormal thing that people have been experiencing. They don't know what it is. It's not, it's like I can't even describe it, but they drew the exact picture of the little stick figure I seen, and that's a thing. And that is kind of like you know, it blew my mind because I had this experience and later found out, wow, that's something that somebody's experiencing. And you know, I think that's just so cool when you don't know what it is, then you find out what it is, and it adds up. Yeah.
I got a weird question for you, man. I don't know if it's just me being me. Was that doll looking at you the whole time?
That's where it is now.
I don't know.
I thought it was facing forward. I can't remember. I'll go back and watch it.
It's actually.
I hope somebody watched that. The viewers at home seen that. That doll turned and looked at you, man, this whole time. Holy shit.
Well, the doll's been looking at him the whole time. The doll has always been looking at him the whole time. However, the head is more pronounced at him.
It's just staring at him. Listen to the little word that you're saying. I mean, I don't know.
It's like anger.
Go on, yes.
Well, see, Jason mentioned the doll earlier at the Melbourne. And so the doll kind of actually seemed to like,
Jason
articulate towards.
But Johnny said he saw the doll, or he experienced the doll a couple weeks back in Malvern Manor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he said I'm going back. He said I can't wait. So I'm just curious. I got to find out that doll moved. I'm gonna go back and watch the video later on. And viewers at home, if you know, let me know.
I mean, I believe I just said her. I had no idea.
I think so too. Yeah, I swear you did that same like that. And I happened to look up as you're telling the story. And I'm like,
just looking over.
That freaking doll staring at him.
And maybe I'm just a bastard, but when he had his arms stretched out and telling the story, I was like so hoping the doll was like gonna grab me.
Grab him. You're said that you never heard before. I been screaming like, where did it come from, dude? That's like a girl screaming. What the hell?
Man, if that doll moved, that's my $1 million right there.
Oh yeah. Yes. You better start dialing Zach up right now.
It's only in the museum, but for a price.
Hefty price.
And I have a perfect name for it. Our grandma, mine and Leo's grandma, she had a house over here.
Oh yes.
Older house.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
And she had a doll that looked just like that doll, except for that doll had hair, of course. And that doll's name was Peggy, and a cousin of ours, he actually, my grandma used to have it in this bedroom that was connected to where the bathroom was, and the doll sat in there, and it was a pretty creepy looking doll, as you can tell. So he like walks by it, and the doll's hand just went down at the perfect time, and he ran.
He's like, Grandma!
Yeah, he was so scared of that doll.
Yeah.
But it is, I
Peggy.
mean.
I like
Yeah.
Peggy. So there you go.
But I think those are Peggy. I think Zach already has a Peggy, so you might have to change it just slightly. Peggy Sue or whatever. You know.
There you go.
I don't know. But that's crazy.
I love to drive around and look for weird roadside museums. And I stopped at one. It was a doll museum.
Nice.
Like, oh, this has to be full of stories and laughs.
Yeah.
I go up there. It's an old lady,
Sure.
and she takes you inside her house, just you and her.
Yes.
And she's explaining to you all her dolls. And halfway through, I'm like, this lady's fixing to make me one of her dolls.
That's like a
There's actually
Brothers Grimm type
Yes.
story.
There's actually a doll museum in Towanda
Is
where
there?
I'm from.
Well, I've been to video one time on the
It's kind of
show
like
about
it's kind of like the same. It's just at this old lady's house, and I think over time it's progressed to her garage as well.
Yeah.
But it's the same sort of deal.
I'm
And
curious.
it was like when my dad and stepmom were dating, it was like between my stepmom's house and the gas station there. I mean, that's a tiny little one-stop light town.
Sure.
So going to the gas station,
I think the address
get
is
something,
somewhere,
was what you did,
doll,
you had to go past the creepy doll museum
Yeah.
to get
So
there.
weird.
I'm
I
like the
have
only
never
person.
been in that place. You can like see it on one of the big windows as you go by, and you're just like,
That's
nah, I'm not, nah.
Yeah. Every time we go to any place to investigate, and I see a doll, I'm the first person that latches on that doll. I'm like, hey, if you're here, make that doll move. And everybody's like, no, stop, that doll move. I'm like, dude, I want proof, man. I want some kind of interaction with something. I'm like the guy that
Nope.
you don't want to investigate with because I'll request that over and over. Location.
He does.
I love it.
He's a jerk.
Yeah,
Kind of like the clown hotel.
yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's not
That looks funny.
Yeah, Zach and his, freaking out over clown. I'm like, dude, really? And he did at the Villisca Murder House. Murder House.
Okay, so that giant clown doll, there's a weird story behind that.
Nice.
So I asked, and this was before they came or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, Darwin, where did you get that gigantic clown doll? Like Satan.com or something?
But I hope, by the way, people don't try it.
And so Darwin goes, oh, somebody left it there. It's kind of funny. You like touch its hand and it starts laughing. It's like one of those. I'm like, really?
Love it. I love
And
it.
so I went back to the house and I'm touching all over. There's no sensor in it to make it do anything like that. It's just a stuffed clown doll. And I went back to Darwin. I go, Darwin, there's nothing in that clown that you can touch like to make it laugh. It's just a stuffed animal or stuffed clown.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Darwin just goes, ooh, golly. And then he just kind of turned around in his chair. And,
Oh no, that's a holy shit moment. Oh, that's awesome,
That's
dude.
the
That's amazing. That's great. Oh, that's perfect, man. You can't script that any better. Oh, Jesus. So is that doll still there, or has it moved on, or elsewhere, or?
I took it to Scarefest in Kentucky.
Gotcha.
And I just had it kind of sitting at my booth with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I don't want to take this home. It's like a 12-hour drive. And I felt weird with my trunk anyway. Like,
Get pulled over. Sure.
I donated it to a haunted museum down in Kentucky.
Nice.
Somewhere down there.
I'm curious to see if that doll was whatever, for instance, after being inside the Villisca.
See if anybody else has squeezed his hand and heard it laugh.
Right. Yeah.
I honestly, I did not want that thing riding back to us. It was just like, I had a weird feeling like,
Should have had it ride shotgun, man.
You just tried to away.
I'm getting kind of tired. I'm gonna pull over. You want to take over driving for me, clown?
Like the inflatable co-pilot.
Yeah, Jesus, it's a clown. Yeah. Holy shit, that's funny. No, that's awesome. We have one last video to play tonight. It's still from the time that GA was there, and or should I say GAC Ghost Adventure Crew, to be hip. Sorry, man. I don't just like this guy. Some of the team members here, you're like, oh god, that's that guy. Yeah, I like it because it's it's freaking paranormal, man. Or not, but it's still entertainment. I get to watch something that we live day in and day out, so it's fun for me. So I watch all those shows. I don't care if it's good or bad.
He's laughable, but I watch him every
Yeah.
time.
Some of this shit, I think if this shit is real, man, that's freaking awesome. Or if it's just scripted, it is what it is. I get it. But no, this is one I find very fascinating and sad at the same token because they hit on the spirit box session again, and they're outside the guest bedroom where Lena and Ina unfortunately plunged into death, and they get some interesting results. So let's play that real quick here. And then I got to ask Johnny once, like I said, who he thinks is the murderer, possibly.
I have to ask something before you ask that.
Go ahead.
No.
Oh, it's
you
now.
before you ask
Okay.
the final question.
Okay. So watch this video real quick. Like I said, it'll play through twice.
You'll notice there's no voices right now. Nothing but this white noise. Watch when I start asking questions. Is somebody here? You just trying to talk to us in there earlier? Are you scared of us? Are you scared of us?
I never straight up answer.
Tell me what your name is.
Tell me what your name is.
Lena is the name of the 12-year-old girl who was murdered here in 1912.
Is that you, Lena? Are you a little kid that lives here? What's your name?
Paul Moore was the 5-year-old boy who was also killed in this house.
You'll notice there's no voices right now. Nothing but this white noise. Watch when I start asking questions. Is somebody here? Are you just trying to talk to us in there earlier? Are you scared of us? Are you scared of us? Tell me what your name is.
Tell me what your name is.
Lena is the name of the 12-year-old girl who was murdered here in 1912.
Is that you, Lena? Are you a little kid that lives here? What's your name?
Paul Moore was the 5-year-old boy who was also killed in this house.
Okay. So, like I said, the same. Oops, hang on. There we go. Sorry, I was having trouble with the mics. At the same token, like I said, it's fascinating evidence that they captured because of the names they were getting were actual murder victims that happened from 1912. Once again, I think Johnny kind of touched upon this now. Was it the actual victim speaking? It's a girl's voice, maybe, and Paul at the end was one of the Moore kids. Lena was the, I can't say the name again, Stillinger?
Yep.
One of the kids from Stillinger, the friends of the kids that stayed the night with them that night, and unfortunately were also victims. But, like I said, it's just fascinating, and it's sad at the same token, because these are kids that were there at that time, interacting with Zach and crew and everybody else. I mean, that's terrible. I mean, obviously, like you said, you think they moved on or are not there to this day, but maybe. I mean, I don't want to deter people from going there and trying to interact with somebody or whatever.
One thing I noticed that because I sort of binge watched a whole bunch of Villisca episodes of various shows today. At the end of the Dead Files episode, it says that you stop talking about them on your historical tours and all activity has ceased at the house. So, I mean, that's literally the last of the
case solved. I mean, they figured it out, right?
Yeah.
It's funny.
I was like, wait a minute, I need to see what sort of chronological order I like these episodes, man.
They also said that I frantically called them asking for help.
Of course.
It was me. I've never frantically called in.
Oh my gosh. That is crazy.
So, what's your take on the Dead Files?
He's like, I love him because I'm going to get back on the show one of these days.
You don't have to answer. I have my opinion.
It's TV show, right?
Right.
So,
I
go
think
ahead.
that, I really wanted to hear the dude's take on it from a
Right.
homicide detective point of view.
Right,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that, I don't know.
I'm sorry.
You don't have to answer. We get it. I understand both sides of it. It's like when I did the wrong thing, Travel Channel drops me, or Discovery. Yeah.
So I kind of got into it a little bit with them, and during the reveal, there was a bit of an argument that ensued that did not make it.
Gotcha.
Because they're saying how horrible it is to have people investigate this and that, and I'm like, if everyone has the potential to become a ghost, that's like 350 billion plus ghosts. Like, at some point, do you tell everyone to leave Gettysburg because they're bothering the ghosts?
Right.
Yeah.
I go, the paranormal teams that come here are the most respectful people,
Good.
period. It's just like, what? I don't know.
That's good to hear. Yeah. 'Cause you never know how people are going to react, especially. Well, I'm not trying to throw Zach under the bus, but you see him on TV. Granted, he is on TV. He has to be theatrical. He has to do, oh my God, the reaction that you want to see at a place like that. So, but genuinely, he may be a crap, I'm scared out of my wits, or whatever. I mean, it's possible.
Activity has not ceased. I never called asking for help.
Well, you ever?
On a side note, he might call about that doll looking.
Yeah.
No. We all look. We all look.
Frantically.
Still sitting there.
And people at home, not everything's paranormal. Maybe we just missed the part where he put it back and whatever. I mean,
Most likely did.
I hope it's freaking paranormal because man,
That'd be awesome.
you get to sleep with that thing tonight. So good luck. We're friends. So we're getting close to the end of the show. I hate to do this. We're gonna say this. You have another
What
question?
did he want to ask?
Okay, so back when I first started getting into this, and when I was getting introduced to doing the ghost tours here in Wichita, to becoming a member of Everyday Legacy Paranormal and all that, I first kind of introduced myself with a group called the Miller Group, which did a case here in Wichita where I first met them, and I was a paying guest. And then I was a paying guest with them out in St. Joe, Missouri, where they're based out of, or were.
Right.
Because I have no idea where they are now today. But I followed their website really well because they were the first group to ever interact with me and talk with me and stuff like that. But they went to Villisca,
Oh yeah.
and they had a ton of photographs.
Yes.
And stuff, and they had a lady with them called Misty, who claimed to be a medium. And I had no reason to doubt her because at first I did, but then after working with her a couple of times, I'm like, oh my God, you're kind of cool because you're hitting on stuff that's amazing.
Right.
And I had some moments with her that was just beyond my explanation of stuff. But some of the photographs that they had at Villisca, now this is back in 09. At the beginning of 09, I believe.
Right.
That just kind of blew my mind. With photographs, it showed at the bottom of the stairs, the feet of children in that time period clothing, but yet it was all blurry. And I didn't know. Are you aware of that group or the stories of that team or anything?
So, this Misty, was she with that group or was she at the house?
She was with that group.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of somebody. Is she? Was this a long time
It was a long time ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Long time. I assumed it was before you got there.
Okay, so
Or about the same time, yeah.
yeah, I know who you're talking about. And
Okay.
Darwin liked her a lot.
Okay.
And
Me too.
I always thought, yeah, right, So there was one time went in the house and there's a million ladybugs everywhere, these Japanese beetles or whatever. So like when they farm, like cut down all the corn and stuff, harvest, all these beetles are in there and they come into everybody's houses around here. So we had it fumigated and killed all these beetles. And Darwin and I moved all the furniture to the middle of the floor, started sweeping them up, and it's like, let's finish this tomorrow. And we left. She called Darwin and said, Sarah doesn't like the way you left the house tonight.
What?
Oh, shit.
Holy crap.
Wow.
Nobody knew that but me and Darwin.
Right.
And she also, and back in those days, we left the axe where the axe was left. And she called up Darwin. She's like, Sarah doesn't like the axe being in the house.
Oh my God.
Nobody knew that. And so that was like, okay, I like this girl.
Oh, wow.
You know? So yeah, that was, I mean, nobody knew that Darwin and I left the furniture in the middle of the room, but Darwin and I. Like that was just let's do it tomorrow.
That's remarkable.
That's pretty cool.
Wow.
I had that picture, by the way. I'm going to put up that picture from the Jason's talking about from the Miller Group.
I worked with the Miller Group, and Misty, a few times, Misty would like grab me and take me to certain areas. I went to Glory Psychiatric Hospital in St. Joe, Missouri with her. She would like drag me around that place and like put me in scenarios with just her and I. And it was the most amazing experience ever. It blew my mind, and I was like, I gotta have more of this.
Yeah.
But then they disappeared, and I have no idea where they went.
I think they disbanded, didn't they?
Yeah, I think so.
So this is the infamous picture Jason's talking about from Villisca, Iowa, murder house that they had captured. So you can see it looks like little girls.
It's children at the top. Yeah, it just looks like children.
Like two little girls.
It's distorted looking. I mean, back then it's probably a 35 millimeter possibly.
Yeah.
This is way before
I've been
cameras existed.
looking at this photograph for I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
And knowing that I know the three of them that took it, I don't know. And this is when I fell in love with the story of the Villisca Axe Murder House. As horrible as the story is, you just fall in love with the story and the history and everything. You know.
Have you ever seen this picture, Johnny? Do you remember it?
Yeah, it's been a long
I was going to say, I had to go find it. That's how long it's been. So.
Yeah.
We talked about it years ago. Yeah, but do you know any background to this picture at all? If you don't, that's okay too.
I don't actually. I mean, that was like year one of me working there.
Wow.
I just remember what she posted on the story. It said, we captured this of the children standing at the bottom of the stairs or toward the stairs.
It almost looks like the same girl, though. I mean,
Yeah.
almost.
They say that there's like more than one standing there.
Yeah, I can see the different height angles and stuff.
Yeah, there's a short one and a taller one.
Yeah. Now, it's not unheard of for the girls to dress similar, right?
Right.
Like Johnny said, they practice different things than we did.
But to see that there was like the pinnacle of like me wanting to know more about everything they did, and then getting to know Everyday Legacy Paranormal and getting into that and the story of that and learning history of that. And it's just, that was it for me.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I kind of got into the whole game, you know, I reached out to every single paranormal team in my area.
Yep.
Dude, let me come along. I'll roll cables. I get it. I gotta earn my spot. Not one person replied to me.
Exactly. That's how Renee and I got started with. Yeah, go ahead. Tell the story.
Oh, no, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was going to say, that's how we got involved with Everyday Legacy Paranormal. Is we reached out to a couple people around Wichita, especially Wichita, Kansas, we're talking about, and they were the only people that responded to us. Which, just a quick footnote, and I don't want to be like, oh, we're somebody. Everyday Legacy, you talked about the Kling brothers a couple times, Brad and Barry Kling. They're Everyday Paranormal. When our group started, we were Legacy Paranormal, and our buddy, I know you've been on the show, Jeremiah Norwood, he was the team founder of this group. He met up with the Kling brothers, and so did Brandon Callahan. They had their own group out of Missouri. They were Everyday, we were Everyday Legacy Paranormal, and Brandon Callahan was Everyday Paranormal of Missouri, I believe.
Nice.
That's how we got introduced into the field, basically. But over time, we broke apart and did our own thing, just because.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not talking about them. I don't know the Clinton brothers. I never met them. I would love to meet them. I think they're still fascinating guys. I wish they still did more of like the Ghost Lab series. I thought that was pretty intriguing.
Yeah,
what they did.
That was cool.
Yeah, but
I met Leo and Renee at a location that was later featured on
Dead Files.
Dead Files.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Big Files, yeah.
Yeah, it was the Emily Dawn Salon out of Wichita.
And you know, we didn't get a chance to argue or have a dispute, but our take on the place is so much different than the TV show.
Well, it was TV show, yeah. And like you probably could attest to it. We didn't frankly call them either. And so let's put a bow on this tonight. And I would love to have you back on, because I didn't get a chance to even show the video footage of your series, Johnny Hauser versus the Villisca Axe Murder House, because I was watching some of it today even, and my youngest son, who's 9 years old, loves the paranormal field, by the way. You talk about kids bringing along. I have 2 boys that really want to go every time I go somewhere, but I'm like, this is for a client. I can't bring along yet, but someday we will. But anyways,
I could talk with you all night.
This is awesome, man. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, it's Tuesday morning. Like, holy crap! Did I go to work? I think I skipped my job. But we saw some things on your footage that I don't think you noticed. Possibly you didn't allude to. So I would love to pick your brain apart.
So all of those, I did 20 episodes at Villisca.
That's awesome.
And all of them, I never reviewed or looked at any of the evidence once.
Sweet.
Because I wanted to be little Easter eggs for people that
I love it.
That's what you got.
I love it. I found some shit that I don't.
Awesome.
In the moment, you did not even. You didn't like things that you weren't even in the room for that I found. I'm like, holy crap! He doesn't know about this. He doesn't talk about it. Now I know why.
I was pointing at the TV and I'm like, right behind, look.
Yeah, I took notes. I got all kinds of stuff ready for you. And we didn't get a chance to talk. So you have, if you would, we'd love to have you back on anytime, man. And I've been trying. Go ahead, sorry.
All of that stuff, like I did it, and then I came home and I've never watched them. I have no idea what's in them.
Oh my god.
The most epic ghost, a ghost on camera, and I
was gonna say, you know about the entity that walked in? I'm just kidding. I never
I want the viewers to be my team.
That's awesome.
See what you can find in here, because I have no idea what's even in there.
That's cool.
Well, please come back on.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back on so we can talk about specifically
And the doll.
Yes.
Bring your doll, yes. Hey man, bring your green hat. No, I'm just kidding.
Before we go, I would like to say that if anybody hasn't watched that show, your episodes, they definitely need to go check it out, because your emotions are raw.
Yes.
They're not scripted out, and that's like that had so much more respect for you just seeing that.
And where can we go to watch it?
To myself for an hour.
Yeah, we get it. We do it too.
Yeah.
We just don't film
It's
it.
just,
No, we do.
Yeah, it just shows, like what us as investigators go through. People don't understand because they see the TV shows and they're like, oh, this is the way it's supposed to be, one thing after another happening.
Yeah.
Whereas yours was just like right on. I mean, it was on point.
Yep.
Thank you.
Well, let me ask. We were talking about we were going to plug your where to watch it. I need to ask you, where do you want us to plug it? Because I don't want to just throw out there where we watched it, because what's going to help you benefit you, or the place the most? I mean, I'll throw out whatever you want us to, or I'll just give links. Tell people where to go.
Nothing benefiting me.
Dang it, man! You're doing it wrong, brother. You're doing it wrong. No.
Of course, like Amazon Prime.
Yes, that's right.
It's all connected through Vidi, which has changed their name, I believe, at this point.
Yep.
It's all connected through the same thing. So anywhere you find it, watch it.
Yep, it's on, like I said, like Johnny said, Amazon Prime. It's on some of them on YouTube. The interesting fact, and I don't want to.
They are.
Oh yeah, I bootlegged those one time ago. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. Now the thing is, that's awesome is, of course, we started Johnny by himself in the location over so many days. I mean, or months. I don't know how long, because Amazon Prime only shows 6 episodes. As you heard Johnny talk about tonight, it's 20 at least 20 sit-down episodes that he did.
And
So
then I have like 20 at Malvern Manor. Like
wow. That's
which
awesome.
is such amazing evidence I caught at Malvern. And it was terrifying by myself. In the
Oh my
morning.
God! See, we didn't get you on.
I'm not sleeping tonight.
See, we've had Josh Hurd on from you. We didn't even plug that tonight. You're part of G Crew also. Johnny is part of G Crew. Josh Hurd we had on the show. I'm still trying to get Chad Lindbergh on, which we met at the KC Paracon that back in 2019, and also Nick, the man himself, Nick Roth. But he's a little busy, of course, doing his his what's it called, Ghostwalker or Deathwalker.
Deathwalker.
I'm sorry, I said it wrong. Deathwalker. Series and stuff like that. We'd love to have all you guys on at one point, and but
and at KC Paracon, that I was right, Dad, and I knew him from. I was on the Ghost Stalkers episode with Vinny for our school.
That's
He's
right.
like, Chad, we need to work together. We need to do something. And he's like, okay, we're putting it out in the universe. Like something a little more real.
Hey, you said
putting it into the universe.
You said Space Ghost Hunters, man. Well, now is a premonition to fast forward to today. What's happening for the future? No, anyways.
And then months later, here we are with this little podcast thing.
Yeah, it's cool, man. Like I said, G Crew. If you haven't seen it, people, make sure you check that out. It's on Patreon, and you guys do stuff every now and then on Facebook Live.
When we do Patreon, we'll go live and just bring on the people listening. YouTube has all kinds of episodes of us with actual guests.
Nice.
And it's all edited. And then anywhere that you listen to podcasts on iTunes or whatever, Spotify, like it's all the audio's on there for free to listen to. And the Patreon's just like a extra stuff.
Yeah, the bonus footage.
Very cool.
Yep.
Very cool, man. Well, we want to thank our guest tonight, Johnny Hauser of the Villisca Axe Murder House, and of course, also Johnny versus the Villisca Axe Murder House, and Sinister, and you name it, Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters.
G Crew.
G Crew, the Dead Files. Don't forget that one. Now, it's been an honor, man, talking to you. Stay on the line if you don't mind. We'll do a little wrap up of the show with the outro video, and then we'll talk a little bit after.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Finally.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime, man. Like I said, you have open invitation, and I know our viewers at home have been chiming in and enjoying this episode, and we appreciate you coming on. And if you guys have any questions for Johnny, let us know. Next time we have him on the show again, we'll definitely reach out and, like I said, have some stuff for you. So, thank you guys this evening. Like I said, everybody, we'll see you next time with another episode of Cryptic Heartland Podcast. This has been episode number 134, featuring special guest Johnny Hauser. We'll see you guys next week.
What's up, guys?
Good night, everybody.